And welcome back to Who Would Win, Wednesday's Who Would Win, pre-recorded on Christmas. Merry post-Christmas. And this one is a continuation of the monthly themed Who Would Wins. Every month I choose a bit, or every month. Once a theme runs out, when I choose a theme that I do for a month, it's a theme that happens every month for Who Would Win. So there's guaranteed to always be three. One at the beginning and then two during the week of Who Would Wins. I said what if. And this theme is the Planeswalkers of the card game Magic the Gathering. If you have not played it, quick synopsis. In the card game Magic the Gathering, it's a fantasy card game. There is a expansive lore, expansive history, infinite amount of worlds, planes of existence, and individuals that can traverse through those planes are Planeswalkers. They're usually stronger than your average spellcaster or mage or whatever character, and those are the characters I've been going with. Now, we are on to a character. This is going to be a unique one. Because there's not going to be a huge amount of physical confrontation in the fight. But this is a new one. The character is called Dovin Baan. Now, Dovin Baan is what is known as a Vindalken. They're all blue. They're blue, kind of alien-esque looking individuals. Some are more humanoid than others, kind of bigger pronounced head on some. And his shtick is that he can analyze any machine, and even people to some degree, and only after a certain amount of analysis, enhancing his abilities with magic, can he basically deduce and pinpoint the weaknesses and figure out correct strategies to basically disassemble or destroy something without difficulty whatsoever. So he's analytical. He continually can see the weak points in something overall. Generally it's machines, but he can do it in people as well. Just not quite on the same level. So who am I going to put up against someone like that? Well, go with someone who is also analytical, who is also keen to pointing out the flaws in things and finding out strategy on the fly. I decided to go with Sherlock Holmes. Like I said, this is not going to be a real we'll probably get a little physical confrontation because someone's got to beat someone up. But this is not really a confrontation like in terms of a straight fight. More like, I deduce. Well, I deduce. So let's break it down. Sherlock Holmes is Sherlock Holmes. He is a high-level genius capable of basically viewing a scenario as is, seeing things that aren't out of place, as I think, or are or aren't, seeing things how they should be, how they could be, and how they would be. He can play out scenarios in his head as they generally go. As you saw, as Mark would not want me to really reference the Guy Ritchie Sherlock Holmes very much, the Guy Ritchie Sherlock Holmes with Robert Downey Jr. You see him play out the scenario like in the boxing arena, in the boxing match. Like, do this. Ability to spit negated. Week of recovery, physical recovery, 6 months. Psychological recovery may take longer. And when he does it with Moriarty, he can do the same. They're both playing out the scenario in their head where they're fighting and how it will go down. They're just standing there the whole time. That's more or less what Sherlock Holmes can do. Holmes vision, as it's kind of called. Also, Sherlock Holmes, though, is actually a skilled boxer. He actually has like a fighting style he does know, and he's pretty competent. You just don't see it very often. I think some depict him having a sword cane, though. I know that Watson's depicted that a bit more often, at least in the movies he is. Again, Guy Ritchie movies. He also has an addictive personality. Like, he does do drugs like opium and things along those lines were big proponents for him. Because it's the hallmark of an addict, basically. He's also can be a bit of an ass because he's so matter-of-fact about things and needs kind of to be right. House, MD, Hugh Laurie's character House from the show, is more or less Sherlock Holmes. Just a medical variant of the character, and Wilson was his Watson. So, basically, I would imagine it's kind of like a meeting of the minds with like Sherlock Holmes meeting Moriarty, except in this case it's Dovin Baan. Dovin Baan has maybe shown up on Earth, back in the day, let's assume that happens, has discussed how he's a human, but then Sherlock Holmes comes in and is like, it's over, Dovin. It's over, Dovin, or do you prefer Dovin Baan? Yes, Dovin Baan it is. It's like, and you just see Dovin Baan, probably a stoic look of just, he takes off the makeup or whatever, and I see you figured it out. It wasn't that hard to figure out. Your actions were not entirely that of a human. And Sherlock Holmes would say to Zeus, now, how he figured him out explains that, yes, but it seems you've come here alone. Of course I'd come here alone. I wouldn't dare disrespect such a worthy adversary. No one has given me such a a tough time. This is more a hard time since Moriarty himself. It's like, well, this Moriarty must have been quite the fellow. Or he'd maybe even would distance like I don't see how that's much. I don't see how that'd be very difficult for a dullard like yourself. Oh, the quips, the quips, the quips. Coming very impressive from a man who's bluer than the sky itself. It's like I take that as a compliment, and they'll just immediately go back forth with like insults and jabs. Now the question is, who starts to get a little bit more pissed off first? Sherlock Holmes or Dovin Baan? Baan can easily point out the character flaws of Holmes, but that won't affect Holmes because Holmes knows his character flaws and is perfectly fine with them. Holmes is fine with who he is, so pointing out character flaws isn't going to bother him at all. But then Sherlock Holmes plays that right back. He's like, and how does this affect your friendship with your friend D.O. Watson? Oh, not as bad as the friendship you have with absolutely no one. Isn't that right? After all, who could handle someone who just is obsessed with law and order to the point where they cannot be in the same room with them for more than 5 minutes? I mean, after all, and then Sherlock Holmes continues to just go on, just drawn out, continue to poke out, continue to poke or point out all the character flaws of Dovin Baan. And I would think I would believe Dovin Baan at first would just play it off coy, but Dovin Baan would eventually get a little bit more irritated. And Dovin Baan, I think, does have a few other abilities, like he can create like little creatures known as servos. These little, and they're not strong. They're like in the game, they're among the weakest creatures. They're tiny little chump creatures. So you can create these little gadgets and stuff like that. So he's probably already created a few, and they're kind of circling around, getting ready to attack Holmes. And this and that. Well, it's like you seem to have figured out everything, including it's like, well, I mean, I try to do my best, including the little mechanical friends you have hiding around the room right now. And Dovin Baan was just kind of froze about like the bastard. Actually, the bastard is good. And it's like, yes. So it's like, so tell me, Mr. Baan, how are we going to? So tell me, Dovin, oh boy, how are we going to settle this matter? And Dovin, and they're kind of just a little brief square off of the mental minds, and then Dovin just takes it gives the command, the servos attack him. I'm saying there's maybe 3. Holmes never has a cane, so he just kind of grabs them, angles it, thinks it right, and just grabs them both and just throws them back at Dovin, who does immediately get out of the way, but Holmes immediately throws the cane to just kind of like, poof, not embeds in the wall, but does get right. It kind of goes, the end of the cane just goes right at Dovin, and then Holmes comes in and just, like delivers a punch right to Dovin's stomach. As Dovin trying to get up and out of the way as fast as he can, but he's like, no, and then Holmes just kind of clocks him, and that's it. The reason Dovin loses this fight is actually very simple. Is that Dovin is not a physical, unlike even Jace, who is a telepath, does have some physical training to him. He actually does know a little bit of fighting and things along those lines. Liliana, who is a necromancer, has been around long enough that she does at least kind of know how to fight. Dovin's not a fighter at all. He is an intellectual. He lets others do the work, and he can point out systematic flaws and things along those lines. So the issue with him going up against anyone else intellectual is the fact that most other intellectuals have physical abilities or physical traits or just physical training to fight. Sherlock Holmes particularly does know how to fight if he has to. He just is usually smart enough to get around that whole little stigma. So yeah, I have to go with Sherlock Holmes in this fight. It doesn't matter which version it is, honestly. I have to go with Sherlock Holmes. Is there a way Dovin wins? Sure, if he maybe had planned ahead far enough that he maybe had an extra servo to kind of like, I don't know, knock Holmes out or something. Sure, but ultimately I think it will be Sherlock Holmes, and I'll go about 90% of the time on that. But in a 10% margin, I think, or a 10% minority scenario, I do believe that Dovin can win. But what do you think? You think Dovin would lose? You think Dovin would win? Holmes wins, loses farther or closer or farther than I made it. Put in the comments below, let me know. But thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Like, comment, share, subscribe. As always, who wants to review something, put in the comments below. Let us know. We'll do a review of it at some point. And ideas for who would win, Star Wars, Super Hero, Magic, what if, anything I do on the channel. Put that in the comments below. Let me know. I'll get to that at some point. Be back with What If. Thanks for watching. See you.